Thank you, and thank you for the analogy to climbing Mount Everest. As the father of somebody who's taken the trek to base camp, I can tell you from his experience that might not be quite as arduous as the remainder of the trip to the peak, but that's quite a journey, and so maybe it's an apt comparison for both phases of this project. Please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Paul Cacciadorian. I'm the owner of Catch Environmental. I'm from Fresno. I was born in Fresno, and outside of military service, I've lived there a majority of my life. I am representing one of the 276 small businesses that have been positively affected by the California high-speed rail. Prior to knowing that it was coming to Fresno, I voted for it. I've always been a supporter of high-speed rail. I think it's something that we're going to need in the future. As far as Fresno goes, coming from Fresno and living there all my life again, it's always seemed like the Bay Area, no offense to anybody from Bay Area or LA, but there was a lot of money that went to those areas, and the city of Fresno and the Central Valley in general was left out. And it's amazing to me, and it always will be, that it started in Fresno. I can see why, but it's such pride that the first high-speed rail in the United States started in my hometown. Now, what it's been able to do for Fresno is you could just see other areas and businesses that are outside, private sector businesses that are being revitalized also around this, the proposed station, and you could just see the mood of Fresno is just positive, upbeat, and the economy is just generating a lot of new jobs. Now, what it's done for my company, we do the hazardous material remediation and demolition. And prior to the high-speed rail, we had about 8 employees, and we were moving along, and it was small, very small company, and it has allowed us to hire new employees. Right now, we currently have 25, with a need for 10 more, immediate need for 10 more. And we are hiring them through the EDC, in partnership with the EDC, and hiring primarily people who are on CalWorks. And those people who are just looking for an opportunity to have a good paying job, union job with benefits, job security. This has given me the opportunity to give them the opportunity for that job. The EDC and myself, we train them and put them in a position for long-term employment. You could see these men and women that come to my company, their outlook is totally different. They're very happy that they've had the opportunity, and they really work hard. It was just the opportunity that was given to me was something that I needed, a shot in the arm, so to speak, and I gave them the same shot in the arm, and they're just working out wonderful. I am a certified small business and disabled veteran-owned business. I got out of the military disabled, and in the state of California, they try to hire small businesses and disabled veteran-owned businesses. But with the California High-Speed Rail Community Benefits Agreement, it's really put the emphasis on hiring and looking for local businesses, small businesses, disabled, women-owned businesses, things like that. It's allowed or afforded the companies, big global companies or national companies, to look at companies like mine and to give us a shot where we might have been passed on for our small size and experience in the past. This has really given them the necessity to look towards us and to help out the local economy, and they have. So far with Construction Package 1 and Construction Package 2-3, I can tell you that there's been a lot of job creation and a lot of people that I know that are involved in the high-speed rail, and it's been nothing but positive. Some of the buildings in the areas that are being replaced had hazardous materials in them, and the areas getting cleaned up. These are areas that were needed to be cleaned up anyway in some parts. Vacant buildings that weren't being used, and now the high-speed rail has use for it and is paying for it, and that's another positive aspect for Fresno. I just want to say that most of the money that my company is making, we're reinvesting in new equipment. All the equipment is the latest emissions, Tier 4 final, as far as the off-road equipment and new trucks. That's revitalizing, and that's expanding the job creation from the people who sell and rent equipment. I'm buying a lot of supplies and materials from distributors. Some are in the Bay Area, some in Los Angeles. So that's improving their economy, so to speak. It has a broad reach other than Fresno. But speaking on behalf of Fresno, it has been a night and day improvement, something that we're all proud of. You could just see an excitement there, and we're just really grateful that the High Speed Rail Authority has chosen Fresno to start here, and given a small business and a disabled business the opportunity to work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Leanne Eager, and I'm President and CEO of the Economic Development Corporation in Fresno County. I started working there about 7 years ago, which is 2009, right after Prop 1A was passed. And I think my first week on the job, someone came to me and said, we got to look into this high-speed rail thing because it might mean something for us here in the Valley. So it wasn't too long after that the federal government said, okay, we're going to start there in the Central Valley. Well, from then on, it was all bets are off, right? And as a recovering attorney, my job was really to look into all the aspects and make sure that this was going to be done correctly for my community and all those folks in the Central Valley and the state of California. So I think since then, I've gone to about 200 meetings. I've read every piece of paper that there ever is to ensure that what's going to happen in the Valley doesn't happen to our people, but with our people. One of the things that we have done, as Mr. Cachadorian talked about, is we looked at how to ensure that the local people were hired on this project. One of the things that I was involved with was the National Targeted Hiring Initiative to ensure that the people who needed the jobs were going to get the jobs. We had meetings with businesses up and down that alignment to let them know what was coming. We made sure that people that wanted to work on the project had the opportunity to work on the project. The other thing that is I think the hardest part of doing this work is we work with those folks that are on the alignment. There are about 330 businesses and people on the alignment that need our assistance. And one thing that the mayor of Fresno and the Board of Supervisors and the EDC said early on was, we're going to support this project because we believe in it, but not at any cost. And the cost was not about the money, because we know you'll figure out how to do that. The cost was to our local residents and our local businesses. So we jumped in and said they will have an advocate up and down that alignment. As we move people from place to place, we ensure that the rights are being met. And I tell you, there are 30% of all of the businesses so far that we've moved from place to place have increased their business. So they have expanded. What they've asked us to do is find a bigger spot for us because, as Paul said, a lot of those businesses were in blighted areas. They were able to move to another place and grow. We have been able to save about 3,000 jobs that are on that alignment to make sure that they stay in Fresno. 97% of those folks on the alignment are still in Fresno and still kept their businesses, and that was a goal of ours. But I think even bigger, the bigger piece for me has always been, what will this do for California? What will this do for the Central Valley of California? And I've ridden the high-speed rail in China and Spain and Italy and France, and I've been able to look at stations in all of those areas, maintenance facilities in all those areas to look at what jobs might be. This last year, I was in Spain, and we rode the train from Madrid to Malaga. And that's probably about the same distance from San Francisco to Bakersfield. And when we got to Malaga, we met with the local people there and said, what did this do for your community? And what they came back and told us was they were a community that was based solely on folks coming there for to get away from the main cities. It was all about tourism. And that when the recession hit and tourism fell off, they were in big trouble. And they begged the Spanish group for a high-speed rail station there to connect them to the major metropolitan areas. Well, that hit home for me. Fresno is certainly, and the Central Valley is certainly ag-centric. And we believe in agriculture, we support agriculture, but when the recession hits and when agriculture gets hit, it affects us all. We've had double-digit unemployment forever. And so we're looking also at how do we look at branching out and ensuring that our economy can grow in other ways. Monday night, I met with the folks in San Francisco at the Bay Area Council and the folks in the tech community. And I talked about what this will mean for both our communities. And I think some folks here talked about, well, no one's going to get on a train and live in Fresno and work in San Francisco and come back. Well, that's not my goal. My goal is not for people to live cheaply in the Central Valley and work someplace nice in San Francisco. My goal is to get those folks in the Bay Area to expand their business into the Central Valley, because you can get your folks back and forth if you need to, but we want them to expand into the Valley. And in talking to the people Monday night, they're all in. They said, we've run out of space. We can't afford anything here anymore. So yes, we're absolutely looking for some place to expand that is affordable, that people can get to. I talked to a company that said, we're going to do our R&D in the Silicon Valley no matter what, so you can't talk me out of that. But right now, we manufacture our product in the Midwest because it's easier to get there than it is to get to the Central Valley. And I said, that's not acceptable. That's absolutely not acceptable. You're a California company. You should be manufacturing in California. I asked if high-speed rail would make a difference to them. They said, absolutely. Absolutely, that would make a difference. For us, it's that bigger picture. It's certainly important. These jobs are absolutely 100% important, and we're talking thousands of jobs. That's going to make a difference to us here. But I'm looking at this long term. What will this do for the state of California in that connectivity? And around the world, people are doing it everywhere, right? When you're looking at Spain, they took their train from Madrid to all parts of Spain and included the smaller cities, even though Fresno's not a smaller city. We have 500,000 people, right? It does include those smaller areas because they saw what connectivity does. They saw how it changes the economy. And that's what we want here. And I think I heard some folks here talk about, well, we had this company or this country that was willing to take it from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and they wanted to talk about their own route. Well, I know what that route was. It was down the 5, and it was going to bypass all of us in the Central Valley. And I'm offended by that. I'm offended by people who say, we don't really need to stop in the Central Valley because there's no people there. Well, certainly in the 8 counties of the Central Valley, there are 4 million people there. That is part of California. We should be connected to California, and this will allow us to do that. We're sort of an island unto ourselves right now because we're on the eastern part, and the western part gets connected, and somehow those of us on the eastern part get left out. This will allow us for that connectivity. And I think my friends from southern counties will probably tell you, and they've told me directly to me, that I'm this dreamer, right? And I have to tell them, you're absolutely right. I am that dreamer. I'm sorry. Because I do have this dream that someday we won't have that high unemployment in the Valley. That we won't have the highest number of children in poverty in the entire country living in my community. That someday we won't have children that are suffering from asthma because of all of the pollution that we have in the Valley. I have an 88-year-old grandmother. I have my daughter and my 2 granddaughters all have asthma. I have a dream that someday those kids can go to school and be able to go out on recess every single day and not have to worry about what that air quality looks like in the Valley. So yes, I'm absolutely a dreamer, and I believe that this project will help me achieve that dream. Thank you.
Well, thank you. On that very optimistic note, we'll close out this panel, and I'll ask if there are any other members of the public who would like to speak. Please step forward. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I understand you've already hung in here afternoon, but I'll stick around and please proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Ted Hart. I have been attending all of the high-speed rail meetings, board meetings, everything for 6 years, and am very well versed in whatever we would want to talk about in high-speed rail. I also have spent 60 years in the commercial construction business. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is something that has not come up. It's not in the 2016 business plan, and yet it is on the forefront of everything that we look at daily, and that is what's missing from that particular plan at the present time. How does the authority plan to provide safety for those passengers against a terrorist attack? There's nothing. Are we to believe that all of the meetings that they have had over this period of time, that somehow this didn't just happen to drop into their wheelhouse or begin to want to talk about this? Because it is 24/7. It's a reality. If anybody wonders whether there's any credence to this, all they have to do is look at Brussels. Brussels targets were transportation. This is not the first time that the high-speed rail has been attacked. The trains were attacked in Brussels. And what we're looking at here right now is 800 miles of open track with no known ability to be able to protect the passengers for that. It's something that it just sort of gets lost. And so I would certainly recommend to the committee that before you put forth any idea of any further funding for this, that you require the authority to explain to you what are they going to do about being able to protect against this. Because Chairman Richard today said that he was interested in a couple of things, two primary and one of them was ridership. Well, the first time this beautiful train goes rolling down the track and the terrorists decide that this is a target that they're going to hit, the first time that train is hit, ridership will not be there. It will be discontinued. You won't see it anymore. So once again, please ask the authority to include in their 2016 final business plan an explanation as how they may do this. I will turn in a lot more detail in case you wonder how the terrorists are going to do this.
You can hand it to the gentleman to your left and next speaker. Thank you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Cindy Bloom, and I'm from Shadow Hills. I echo the comments of Mr. DePinto regarding increased oversight on both financial and environmental work by the authority. I've done an exhaustive analysis of the authority's SAA process and found it to be arbitrary, political, and inconsistent. We have seen the authority play peekaboo with the boundaries of the National Monument, Angeles National Forest, and wilderness areas. Now they are doing the same thing in the Big Tujunga Wash and elsewhere in the state of California. There is a clear nexus between financial and environmental, as these illegal, unethical, and illogical route alternatives are costing millions of dollars to study. Congressman Schiff stated succinctly more than a year ago, the authority has reached their conclusion and are working backwards. Working backwards is an apt description of the new business plan shift from Southern California to Northern California. They are trying to back this train into numbers that keep the train moving, unfortunately, in the wrong direction. And just one other thing I want to say before I wrap up is Dan Richard loves to say that their authority is carrying out what the voters voted for in 2008. And according to the voter pamphlet that I have here, in 2008, Prop 1A puts the budget at $45 billion, not $68 billion, not $64 billion. So if he wants to stay true to his word, he should really look at what the voters really did vote for. And that's the reason why the legislature really needs to oversee this authority. So I urge the legislator and all Northern Californians and all Californians to demand frequent and constant oversight of the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Andrew Chesley. I'm the Executive Director for the San Joaquin Council of Governments in Stockton. I'm here to comment on our concerns associated with the 2016 draft business plan. We have joined together with our friends in Merced, Stanislaus, and in the Sacramento region to outline a number of points that we would like to see change the 2016 business plan. The 2012 business plan was an effort to expand the mission of the High-Speed Rail Authority into interconnectedness, and it was welcomed, I think, by all in that doing that. Unfortunately, the 2016 business plan takes a giant step backwards in terms of interconnectedness with the services that are provided in the northern part of the San Joaquin Valley and the Sacramento region. So we have put together a number of very specific points we would like to see changed in the business plan. We would like to make sure that the Merced connection is added back into the business plan as it was in 2012 and 14. I believe it's referred to as the Merced Y. We'd like to have very specific asks associated with connectedness with the San Joaquin service, with the ACE service, and with the Capital Corridor service. Also, we are very much pleased that Mr. Richards' comments about trying to address jobs, housing imbalances in the Bay Area through provision of rail service. We have been doing that in the San Joaquin region for the past 15 years. Today, 60,000 commuters go into the Bay Area from San Joaquin County and Stanislaus on a daily basis. That is where the market really is when we talk about commuter-related services and jobs, housing imbalance. Service to Fresno is actually something where there's not an existing issue associated with that. So we're looking for the draft business plan to renew its partnership with those entities in the northern San Joaquin Valley and to address some of the very legitimate and real concerns that were raised in 2012 and 14 associated with service into the Bay Area by the San Joaquins, the Capital Corridor, and the ACE service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Daniel Krause. I'm a senior planner for the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. And the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority recently signed an interagency transfer agreement with the state to become responsible for the administration and management of the state-supported San Joaquin passenger rail service, which is operated by Amtrak. Our JPA consists of 10 member agencies: Sacramento Regional Transit, Alameda County, Contra Costa CTC, San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, Stanislaus COG, Merced CAG, Madera CTC, Fresno COG, Kings CAG, and Tulare CAG. On March 25th, the San Joaquin JPA approved a comment letter to the High-Speed Rail on the High-Speed Rail's 2016 draft business plan. I'd just like to highlight a few of the points that came from that letter. This San Joaquin Joint Powers, first of all, appreciates the opportunity to comment on this letter. While the draft presents a major change to the phasing of high-speed rail, it does not change the need for coordination and integration between the San Joaquin Rail Service and the high-speed rail system. With the exception of the Burbank and Anaheim improvements, the High-Speed Rail Authority's draft business plan places less emphasis on blended service improvements than did the 2014 and 2012 business plans. Having near-term improvements of the San Joaquin Rail service between Fresno and Sacramento-Oakland should continue to be identified as important for increased regional connectivity and as a feeder service to high-speed rail, and we hope that's in the high-speed rail final business plan. There has been no state funding made available to enable the planning, environmental, and engineering work needed to provide improved passenger rail service between the future Phase 1 high-speed rail service and Sacramento. San Joaquin JPA is ready to work in partnership with the High-Speed Rail Authority to best utilize Proposition 1A funding allocated for planning in this region through the SB 1029 in 2012 for determining how best to provide near-term improvements to the San Joaquin service to improve connectivity to high-speed rail. San Joaquin JPA remains committed to working with High-Speed Rail Authority, CALSTA, Caltrans, to determine how the San Joaquin service can best support phase implementation of high-speed rail. The San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority looks forward to working with High-Speed Rail Authority to implement a coordinated, complementary an integrated intercity rail network which will help California's economy and will enable our state to grow in a more sustainable manner which protects the environment. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, chairs, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Lynch. I am a UC Berkeley student and founding member of the I Will Ride chapter at UC Berkeley, part of a growing network among college campuses of students informing and educating their campuses about the high-speed rail project. So living and growing up in the Bay Area, Berkeley students in particular are familiar with the necessity of strategic long-term investments in transportation infrastructure. The BART and its current overcapacity are just a tribute to that. But beyond that, during breaks, thousands of Cal students, we go back home to Southern California, we take trips, we plan our trips to well-deserved vacation destinations. And we long for a convenient, accessible way to get to these locations. I myself have been on the unlucky end of that 8-hour car ride from UC Berkeley, where I studied, back home to San Diego. But for the importance of this high-speed rail project to students is not just for convenience. A lot of the people that we talk to on our campus, they're excited to learn that the high-speed rail is coming to California, and they see it as part of a new California that we're going to be helping create and live in for decades to come, one that's reducing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing barriers to mobility for not just students, but all its people. I stand before you today thankful for your time, and I want to let you know that students and the youth, the next generation in California, they do want this project. They're excited for this project. And as you can tell by my T-shirt and our hashtag, we will ride. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of my colleagues who had to step out before public comment commenced. Nick Kennedy, Brandolyn Hastings, and Christian Gonzalez. So they're members from their I Will Ride chapters back in the Central Valley, Fresno City College and Fresno State. They want to voice their support, and on the basis that the high-speed rail project is creating real investments and improvements in their community in Fresno. They wish they could stay. My hope is that one day they'll be able to make that commute from the Capitol back to class on a high-speed rail train. I think they'd say the same, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. They told me they had to get back to class to take finals, which I thought was a poor excuse.
Good afternoon. My name is Mitchell Handler. I'm a student at UC Berkeley, and I'm here to speak in general support for high-speed rail. Yeah, go Bears. As one of thousands of Berkeley students from Southern California, I regularly commute home for holidays and other occasions. Flying is costly and time-consuming for such a short route, and driving is time-consuming and not environmentally friendly. I support high-speed rail to provide for a faster and more environmentally friendly way to travel. Competition is good. A new way to travel across the state will force airlines to provide better service and compete on price. If passengers shift from flights to trains, the number of flights between Northern and Southern California can be reduced, freeing up slots at congested airports like LAX and SFO for other destinations. High-speed rail is a big, complicated project, but I believe it's important for the future longevity of our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your comments. This has been an interesting hearing. It is an informational hearing, so there's no action for the subcommittee to take, and therefore we are adjourned. Thank you.